What consequences can I use when students blurt in the middle of a lesson? Let's dive into this in this episode. Well, welcome back to the Teach for the Heart podcast, where we tackle teaching challenges from a biblical perspective. This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. I'm here today again with Becky Jones, one of our Teach for the Heart Plus mentors and team members. Becky, thanks for joining us again.
Hi, yeah.
So we're answering this question: what consequences can I use when students blurt during a lesson? And we get this question a lot, actually. It's a pretty good question because this is something that literally every teacher deals with, right? We all have students that are blurting, chatting when they're not supposed to. And like, what do we do with this? Becky, I know we get questions like this a lot in our coaching calls,
almost every month.
So it's a good question, and we're going to dive into it. So the first thing that I thought about is actually, before we get to what consequence we give, what's actually really important is that you have some type of system to address blurting. And I often put talking and blurt, like unapproved talking and blurting, kind of together because they're similar. You need to have some type of system for this so that you can apply consequences consistently. Because if we don't have some type of system to track or give warnings or whatever it is, I'll give you a few examples here in a minute, then we end up being really kind of just based on our mood or how we're feeling, or, that's the last straw and this student gets all the wrath when all these students got away with it, So we really want to have some type of system that is actually loving for our students. It creates consistency and it creates order. And there's all kinds of different systems that you can use. So I'm going to try to real quick run through a few of them. And then Becky, I don't know if you can give some thoughts. So the one that I used that was recommended by my mentor teacher was we call it the warning system. So in this system, you give warnings in a tangible way, like writing a name on the board or a clip chart or giving a yellow card. And those students get those when they're talking, when they're not supposed to. Ideally, every single time. Like you talk once, you get a warning. That's kind of the intention behind it. And then once they hit a certain number in a class period, then there's an actual consequence. So do you see though how that's just one example of a system, but do you see how the structure of that allows you to deal with it more early? Right? You're not giving a consequence the first time someone blurts, but if they keep blurting, it builds up to something. So it helps them kind of self-correct. Some of the other plans, here's a couple other just examples though of what a plan could look like. That's just one. A warning system is one type of system. You might use a here's something that might work in high school, a 3-step plan. So the first time you see a student blurting, you just give them the teacher look, or you drop their name, remember George, or whatever it is. You just kind of drop their name. Then maybe the second time in a class period, they get some type of official warning. So you might give them a verbal warning, you might write their name down. And then the third time, there's a consequence, like a reflection form. And by the way, you could do anything as those 3 steps. That's just one example. I had another teacher, they use a discipline notebook. So they have a notebook where they record tallies every time they have to redirect or, blurt, whatever they want to track. And then when there's a certain number of corrections per period, they have a private conversation with the student. And then if it's not corrected by the private conversation, then they get a detention. There's a million different systems you could come up with, but you need some type of system with really clear steps so that you know how to handle it, because it's something that's constantly happening. And so you have to be able to address it. And the consequences have to make sense by the time you get to them. And you need to know when to implement the consequence. Becky, would you add anything to that thought about the systems?
I would say that one of the things that sometimes people get so excited about this, they're like, okay, so I'm going to hand a kid a yellow card and then I'm going to write their name in my book and I'm going to put a check mark on the board. And they start creating unintentionally 2 to 3 separate systems, and don't do that. That is one of our biggest recommendations is you need to keep systems simple for students, but also for you, because at that point you're just creating more work for yourself. So if you, like me, are I don't want to give a kid a physical item because then they might lose it or destroy it or whatnot. And in elementary, that is more likely. Then create a different system. Don't do that and then double track it to make sure that the kid keeps the thing and it's there. Just say, that system doesn't work for me. I'm going to do something else. Yeah. But don't stack them on top of each other. It just gets so complicated so quickly.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation, and they want to let you know that applications are now open for the 2026 Faith and Nation Student Forum. Each fall, the Herzog Foundation hosts an incredible 4-day retreat for outstanding high school seniors from Christian schools and homeschool co-ops. The Faith and Nation Student Forum gives students the opportunity to strengthen their Christian worldview and engage with government leaders. Students can also participate in teen challenges, outdoor adventures, and social events designed to build leadership skills and lasting friendships. The Herzog Foundation covers the cost of the retreat, all except travel, making this an amazing opportunity for your high school seniors. Help them apply. Applications close September 18th. Learn more and apply at herzogfoundation.com. Now, back to our program. Yes, exactly. And our biggest advice when coming up with a system is come up with one that you feel good about. If you feel like, I don't really know about this system, you're not going to be able to use it well. You might like force yourself to use it for a few days, but you won't stick with it and you won't feel confident in it, and that will come across. So like come up with something that you feel really, really good about. And yeah, in our programs, we really help you kind of figure that out. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But so come up with a system. But then what do you do for the actual consequence, right? Because it is important that it leads to something. I don't know. I will say the school I did my student teaching in, students actually got a detention like the first time they talked in class. And that was like crazy to me. So I'm like, if you want to be crazy teacher, I guess you can do that. But I don't recommend that. That's why we have the system. But yeah, there does need to be a consequence somewhere along the way. Otherwise, we're just tracking like nothing. And students at some point realize, yeah, you're back to being the Charlie Brown teacher, right? So we don't want that. So here's just a few ideas off the top of my head and gathered from other people of things that you can do as consequences. So I'm going to read through a few of these, and then Becky, you can share some of the second half of the list. So a few ideas. Miss recess time. Okay, it's tried and true. It's varied opinions, but it's an option. You can consider it. Some teachers have students walk laps during recess time instead of playing. Students might miss free time. And if you're like, well, I don't have any free time, well, maybe you create 2 minutes of free time at the end of class for kids to miss if they lost their privilege. A one-on-one conversation with you. Not that you'd say this is your punishment, but that's a logical consequence. It can lead to helpful things, etc. A reflection form can be a really good tool where you give them a reflection form and they have to think about that. And then, they have to write down what they're doing. That can be really helpful. Sometimes calling home or sending a note home. If your school has a demerit or a detention system, that could be very appropriate to get by the time they get to whatever level in the system that makes sense. Becky, do you want to share a few more of these ideas?
Yeah. So this one especially makes sense for the chatter and blurting thing. Sitting alone or moving their seat, like that is just a natural consequence. If you have desk partners, all of a sudden someone who just constantly, I wouldn't have this be their very first consequence maybe, but if they keep having it happen day after day, maybe you don't get to sit next to a desk partner until you prove yourself a little bit more. Cleaning a classroom or other area of the school. Again, not exactly a natural consequence, but a very you took some of our class time, so now you have to give time back to the class. They can't eat lunch with the class potentially. Again, that idea of you used our class time to chat with your friend, so you don't get to do it during the time where you normally would. Class economy fines can be really helpful if you run a class economy, missing out on a fun activity, kind of that free time idea as well. And then depending on your school structure, possibly staying after school for a detention type thing. All of those work. And for me, one of the things that my husband, Jonathan, who's also a teacher, does in his classroom is he has for his consequence listed as teacher's choice. This doesn't work if you haven't run a plan before, but if you are a more experienced teacher who has different things going on and you know that your students are going to have different infractions and different levels of infractions, you can just tell the students teacher's choice for your consequence. That basically lets them know you are in charge of what the consequence is. So theirs might be different depending on how many days in a row this has been an issue. And so that's one way that you can avoid an argument about it while still making sure that they know there is a consequence.
Yeah, that's really smart. I like the teacher's choice idea. And if that were me, I would have at least 5 or 6 things jotted down somewhere that I'm I could choose from. But that also opens up the creativity and allowing the Holy Spirit to say, maybe for this student, you're going to do something different, right? You can kind of grow that list as time goes on. That's really great. So I hope this gives you guys some ideas. It's very important to first have a system, but yes, to have some consequence. And once again, the ideas we listed are just starting points. So if you're still like, I'm still not sure, go back and listen to that list again and ask yourself, well, what other ideas does this give me? Right? So you can use that as a springboard to other ideas. You can also ask around your school and see what works for other teachers in your school, because every school culture is just a little bit different. So I hope this gave you a lot of ideas, but if you want some more help, I have 2 resources to recommend. The first is our Classroom Management 101 course. You guys know that is our course where we actually help you do it all, right? We help you make your plan. We help you think through, where is the line? What am I going to do? What are the consequences? We have it all there, all templated, idea banks, everything. So you want a shortcut, that is absolutely it. You can head over to teachfortheheart.com/CM101, and you can use the code podcast, I believe, to get a discount on that. We also have one very special thing happening this week. It's only for our Teach for the Heart Plus members. So if you are a Plus member, you are not going to want to miss this. It is a training on it's called Day One Success Plan, and it's about how to prepare for day one, particularly your classroom management, and have it all ready so that when you start, you know how to explain your system, whatever talking system you come up with, you can explain it, you can teach it to them, you can start it off right on day one, because it's important to think about it, but you also need to implement it well. So if you're a Plus member, check your account. The info is there. If you're not a Plus member, but you want to join this workshop, you are welcome to join just for a month so that you can join us in this workshop. And we even have a special rate for you. So you can head to teachfortheheart.com/day1 to get the info and join in on that workshop. Becky, any final advice as we're wrapping this one up?
I would just say stay consistent. Whatever it is you choose, keep at it consistently, even if it feels like it's not working. Kids need to trust that you are going to follow through. And as that happens, it will become more and more effective.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Well, thank you guys for being here. This episode has been brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. All views and opinions are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of the Herzog Foundation. I look forward to speaking with you again soon. In the meantime, teacher, remember, God is at work in you and through you, and He's using you to make a difference. Keep your eyes on Him and teach for the heart.